Welcome on in everyone to They Are Not From Philly podcast. I'm Adam from Wales and with my guys Justin from Tennessee, Corey from Columbus, Drew from Westchester is going to hop on in a little bit. But this week we're joined by a special guest. I'm fanboying a little bit, as Tyler's probably already noticed. We've got Tyler Zulli from the Philly Central podcast. Tyler's obviously, if you know Tyler, he's been around Philly sports media for a long time now, working on different radio stations, different podcast platforms, and now Tyler's out on his own and he's doing fantastic. He's doing some great stuff. I told Tyler I could listen to Tyler talk baseball all day. So I'm yeah. So welcome in on Tyler. Really appreciate you coming on with us.
Oh, guys,
It's
thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate you reaching out and asking me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, great. So yeah, it's been a bit of a wild ride for the Phillies so far this year. Started off quite slow. Then obviously Rob Thompson ended up getting fired. A lot of the players felt a certain way about that. I imagine some were happy with it, some weren't. I think overall that they were more mad at themselves for obviously not performing. So it's been a bit of a tough stretch. We've had some injuries. Now we've lost Adolis Garcia for the rest of the season as his bat was starting to get a little bit hot. It seemed to be like it was at the point where he was finally starting to find his rhythm in hitting, which is a shame. And obviously watching him play out in right field is just fantastic. Some of the catches he's made this year have been awesome. Andrew Painter has unfortunately had to be sent back down to AAA. It was just getting to the point where it was like a guaranteed loss, unfortunately. And I hate having to say that because I was one of the ones at the start of the year, I was happy to give Andrew Painter the benefit of the doubt this year. But obviously I don't think we were all expecting the ERA to go so high by this point. Hopefully, we all thought it was, if you can keep it down in the 3 to the 4 range, then that's a really good achievement for him. You know what I mean? As a rookie starting pitcher. So it's a lot of things to go over today. So Tyler, first off, I suppose, obviously, thanks for coming on. And what's your sort of like initial thoughts about the Phillies so far, as we're sort of like at the halfway point of the season now, where we got the trade deadline coming up at the end of July, got the All-Star break in a couple of weeks. So what's your gauge on the Phillies so far?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think you give them a lot of credit for digging themselves out of the hole that they started in. That 9-19 start was, and you're right. I think it was. Bryce Harper talked about it being kind of a weight of the world off of their shoulders. I think they were almost playing, expecting Rob Thompson to be fired at some point in that stretch. One of 3 teams to lose 10 straight games this year, which it's only June, and we've had basically a tenth of the league lose 10 consecutive games, which is kind of crazy, but. I would say the Phillies are a talented and inconsistent baseball team because the talent and the starting pitching is, especially at the top of the rotation, is undeniable, right? Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler probably provide you, if not the best, one of the top 3 best 1-2 punches in baseball. If you've ever heard me talk about Jesus Luzardo, I am a ginormous Jesus Luzardo fan.
Me too. I'm a
Is
lefty, so I love any lefty pitcher.
the stuff is elite, and I know that he runs into some trouble with runners in scoring position. I know he has, the propensity at times to have a little bit of a blow up inning, but I trust that guy come crunch time. You saw it in the postseason last year. You see it in a lot of pockets
Yeah.
over the last 2 years. I'm a huge Jesus Luzardo fan. But the inconsistencies have been in the back half of the rotation. You bring up Painter. Nola has struggled at times this year. And then, of course, the right-handed bats. You're not getting a whole lot of productivity from any of your righties. Trey Turner wins the batting title last year, is really struggling this year, gets kind of taken out of that one spot in the lineup. Alec Boehm's been better since that really dreadful start of the season in April, but his numbers still are not super reflective. Garcia's bat was inconsistent. JT Realmuto's been kind of about what I've expected, which is a little bit underwhelming offensively. But when you put the whole thing together, it is a talented group at the top that is kind of being drug along by that top talent. So
Yeah.
is that a model of success that's sustainable? I guess we'll only be able to find out over the next 80 games or so.
Yeah, it has been really that's the tagline. They're consistently inconsistent, and it seems to be the trend every year with the Phillies. They go through this period where they get in this slump, and it always comes at a strange time in the year. So, it's either in the middle, the beginning, the end, and they just can never find the consistency. So, like I said to you before the start, Tyler, you were obviously a like your brain with the stats is just absolutely insane, and I love it. Now, Drew, who's just hopped on,
How we
Drew
doing,
is
folks?
our
Drew, how are you?
Nice to meet
Drew
you,
is
Tyler.
Drew is like our stats guy. Drew, you might have seen some of Drew's stats on Twitter. He's just a statistician, if
Pat
I said that
McAfee.
correctly. But so Drew, I'll let Drew and Corey come in. They've got some things they wanna ask you about, like trade deadlines and things like that. So, Corey, do you want to go first about Andrew Painter?
Yeah, so Tyler, like obviously Adam already said, we appreciate having you on, man. We appreciate, your work. And that's why, like, obviously we're a big fan of you, have you on our pod. So we appreciate that. So yeah, I
Thank
just got
you.
a couple questions for you. So obviously out of this, the four of us, I would probably say I'm probably the one that like gets like the most emotional. So so a guy like Andrew Painter, so I obviously like I like Andrew Painter, like coming out of the draft, whatever. He was a very hype prospect or whatever. And then obviously you see a guy like Aiden Miller. So I've always been a guy that's like, hey, if you have a chance to get better, do it. Do you think that we kind of like missed our window with Painter and like even Andrew Miller? Like obviously, like not just giving up on prospects and trading prospects. Because if that's the case, what's the point of having prospects if you're just going to move them? But like a couple years ago, like Juan Soto was available. Like we see the way Juan Soto's playing right now. He's playing like an MVP level. So do you think that we kind of like missed our window with moving those guys, or should we like still have time, wait for the development? I mean, I know there's like been conversations that maybe Andrew Painter could turn into like a Cole Hamels type of pitcher. I don't like. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I think I will say this before anything. My like tagline when it comes to prospects is proven over prospects, and that's been something that I've been a big believer in. But with that being said, I do think that when you spend the amount of money that the Phillies spend, unless you're going to spend Dodgers money and Mets money, which they seem that they're probably not going to be in that threshold, probably be in that like next tier down, you do have to supplement a lot of your big contracts with cheaper, younger talent. And so I think like last trade deadline, there were three prospects that I really did not want to move. It was Andrew Painter, it was Aiden Miller, and it was Eduardo Tait. And they ended up moving Tait in the Duran deal, and it ended up being a deal that worked out really well for them because I think that Duran has the chance, if he signs an extension, to be one of the best closers in Phillies history. And,
Break
I think
Papelbon's save record.
right. I think like there's a real chance he breaks Papelbon's all-time record. I think there's a chance that if they do continue to win and win close games, he could get close to Jose Mesa's single season record. So I think like there's a balance of that where you probably pearl clutch like three or four prospects, and then after that everybody's available for the right return. And so to answer your question about moving Painter and moving Miller, I am somebody who would not have moved them because I do think that those two guys, Tait was another guy that I really valued, and they decided to make the move. I think there's a handful of guys that I would really, really struggle to part ways with throughout the last couple of years, and Painter and Miller were two of them. Just because of the raw talent, the ability. Obviously pre-Tommy John is different than post-Tommy John for Andrew Painter, but those guys are young still, even with the struggles that Andrew Painter's had at the major league level. I think those two guys are probably still the guys that you would look back on and go, if they don't work out, of course, hindsight's 2020. But I think those are the two guys that I would have had a really difficult time moving on from unless you're acquiring elite talent back. And elite
Right.
talent
Yeah.
is going to be here for several years.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a sort of similar situation now with Gage Wood, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of talk around, what prospects we have to trade in a package to get some like the likes of Byron Buxton or like say Joe Adele, and Gage Wood is just obviously he's fantastic at the moment down in Reading. He's having every start is just getting better and better. He's obviously going to develop really, really fast. So it's a thing of then the Phillies now seem to be getting to a desperate sort of point because of obviously the Adolis Garcia injury, Andrew Painter being sent back down. So they're really in tight spot at the moment. So Dave Dombrowski's got like a lot of hard work and thinking to do now before the trade deadline, because he's going to have to do something this year, I believe, to really sort of like, not just for the team's sake, but for the fans, to get us to like buy in for
Probably for
one
his
more
own
year,
job's
because this,
sake too.
Hey, Nick Castellanos is out there available. That's a joke.
I know, I've heard, yeah. Because this group is getting old. You know,
So
Kyle Schwarber's older again. Bryce is older again. Trey is injured at the moment. He's not performing. So it's like they can't keep. They don't have. They have a very short window now that they can, you know, use this group. So yeah, it's going to be really, really tough. So Drew, you've got some really good things you want to talk to Tyler about. Obviously, you know, regarding like the type of person that could be like a Harrison Bader type player we could bring in, or some trade talk with Scooble. So I'll let you get into it with Tyler.
Yeah, awesome to have you on with us, Tyler. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you guys can hear and see me okay. Some computer issues, so we're going from the phone, but you know, we got it. You can't win a World Series without being nimble, so you know we're figuring it out. So so Tyler, some quick context for you. I know Adam teed up some stats earlier. So I am a fantasy baseball sicko. I play in, you know, like 14 team, like 40-man roster leagues and all. I'm like, one of the things that where I really like doing that is I feel like, you know, it forces me to follow the whole league. So sometimes, I know sometimes I can maybe get too myopic and form judgments, you know, just off of fantasy. But where I wanted to start with you is, say, you know, the Phillies decide, okay, let's focus on starting pitching. Let's try to be elite at one thing, and you know, bet on that to get us through October. You know, I always joke that I was like an early investor in Scooble. Like I had him on teams in like 2021, 2022. Say Scooble is off the table, you know, just don't have the prospects to compete with, you know, the Dodgers, maybe, you know, the Rays, anyone else who would be in on that as a rental. Who do you think is that next, you know, pitcher or kind of crop of pitchers you could go after to upgrade the rotation? I'll say, me personally, I'm a big Joe Ryan fan. I know he's had some injury scares, but curious on kind of who that like tier 2 would be for you if you're really trying to make an impact move there.
Yeah, it's a tough ask, because I think the balance that you have to find is, you know, obviously who do the other teams want back? And you guys just brought up like the farm system's not particularly deep. I think they have, well, let me rephrase that. I think the farm system at the, you know, near major league ready level is not particularly deep. Gage Wood obviously is probably the premier arm at this moment. I'm a big Kate Obermuller guy. You know, Adam, you talked about being the lefty, funky lefty delivery from Kate Obermuller. He was their 63rd pick. He's in Clearwater. Matthew Fisher, they really like. He's in Clearwater. Ramon Marquez has shot up the boards the last couple of weeks. He's been really good. He just got promoted to Jersey Shore, but you're talking about all of these guys who are high A and low A type of prospects, to the point where like their number 3 overall prospect is a 17-year-old kid who they just signed an international signing bonus. You know, like that's how of a dearth of talent there is at their prospect level. So to answer your question, you know, are they going to be in play for like the elite level pitchers? Maybe like the next tier down. You brought up Joe Ryan is a really big name that I think is circulating a lot in trade conversations, especially if the Twins continue their rebuild that we saw from last year. I genuinely don't know if the Phillies are going to be in competition for any of the, you know, A tier type of starters. I think you're more thinking about, you know, guys that will fill out the back end of your rotation. Like one of the guys I was looking at the other day is Michael Wacha from the Kansas City
Royals.
That. ERA has been really good. Not a high profile guy in terms of power or strikeout numbers or high velocity, but throws a lot of pitches, can pitch to righties and lefties, has been in big moments before, veteran, has been around for a while. Those type of guys, I think, are probably the type of guys you're looking at, the Robbie Rays of the world, who are on expiring deals. And I think San Francisco's looking to get any kind of prospect return that they can. There was a report from Robert Murray the other day that said basically the Giants are willing to move anybody that's not Logan Webb and Jung-Hoo Lee. That includes Rafael Devers, which I don't know if they'll get the return they want for Devers.
It's a big ask to take on that contract, I feel like.
Right. So I think that when you think about the type of pitchers that the Phillies could be in the market for, the Wachas, the Robbie Rays type of guys that have been in the league for a while, that maybe not the type of pitcher that they were at their pinnacle, but still very good, middle of the rotation type of guys. I think that's probably where the Phillies would find themselves in.
Yeah, I want to say Waka for those Cardinals teams has some October experience.
Yeah,
Probably,
I think so.
I can't pull how he did off the top of my head there, but I like that. I like that name a lot. Kind of transitioning off that like similar like theme of players go into position players. Is there and Adam kind of teed it up? Is there a guy who, if you were kind of playing like Dombrowski right now, is there a guy who you think could kind of be this year's like like Harrison Bader, like where like the trade happens and like no one's super impressed, but then really kind of makes an impact. I mean, I'll go as deep as like I watched him hit a home run last night. Like I'd take like Matt Vierling back from the Tigers, like a right-handed bat. Like even I mean, this is a higher quality, but like you mentioned the Giants, like Heliot Ramos, even like you go back to the Royals, like Lane Thomas. If you were making like one really under the radar move for a position player, is there one guy you kind of zero in on there?
Yeah, I think that Heliot Ramos it would be an incredible addition. The problem with trying to figure it out right now is everybody thinks they're postseason teams. At least like 20 of the 30 teams do.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The question really is like, do you care about lefty or it being a lefty or it being a righty? Because like the way that I would go about it is the guy that I've targeted for like 3 years now, and his team has not gotten any better, is Wilyer Abreu. He's left-handed, but the Red Sox are not going anywhere, and I think they may be a team that looks to make some moves. If you don't care about an overload of lefties, Wilyer Abreu would be the first call that I would make within reason. But if you do want a right-handed bat, I think that there's not a lot of really strong right-handed candidates out there. Righties across baseball, especially righties in the outfield, the OPS across the league is sub 700. Combined for all right-handed outfielders, and that includes Aaron Judge being in that conversation. There's the premier right-handed bats in the outfield, and basically everybody else. I think when it comes to like
what about a guy like Matt Chapman for like the Giants?
Yeah, Chapman's an interesting one because the power was not quite there the way that it had been in the beginning of the season. He's starting to hit for some more power now. He's not the platinum glove defender that he once was, but he's still an incredible defender at third base. With Chapman, it really comes down to the contract. Like, how much are they willing to take on in order to acquire a guy like Matt Chapman? Because I think he's probably at this moment an upgrade, well, definitely an upgrade defensively over Alec Boehm. Offensively, I would say the pop provided would be something that you would, be interested in. I think Chapman specifically just comes down to how much of that contract is going to be, how comfortable do they feel taking on that many years left and that much money?
Right.
I'll let other folks go here, but you brought up the Red Sox. It would take moving Bryce back to the outfield, which I'm not convinced he would do. But I'd take if you're looking for a bat there, I'd take William Contreras. I think he's having a really good year. I feel like that's like the high OBP guy. You can benefit from. So I'll let other folks jump in there. But if we're talking,
how would you
Red
feel
Sox,
about that,
that's another
Justin?
name that jumps out to me.
Justin's a lifelong sort of Red Sox fan, but he is a Phillies fan as well. But his first love were the Red Sox.
So with that, I mean, the Red Sox, that whole organization from top to bottom is in shambles.
It's okay.
Wait to get rid of.
We're gonna take your manager here soon, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. I hope so, because they done Cora dirty, and I hope they bring Tech along with them if they do hire Cora. But with Contreras, man, that's who I was going to bring up. But another right-handed bat, I've not got to see any of him at all this year. Who's somebody that I wanted the Phillies to sign, and Jack Fritz wanted them to sign, is Rob Refsnyder, who's always raked against lefties. How's he done this year? I know he's out in Seattle, but how's he done this year? He could be a really good platoon guy.
I haven't checked in on him in a while. He really struggled out of the gate. And because I was in on Refsnyder as well. He's hitting like 140, I think. It's been a really big struggle. I think, in fact, he may be hurt because he only.
I think he missed some time.
Yeah, it was a struggle for him out of the gate because I agree with you. I was in on the Refsnyder train as well, and obviously this was pre Brandon Marsh doing what Brandon Marsh has done, which is
what a year he's having.
If it weren't for Brandon Marsh, obviously Schwarber and Harper were expected to hit, But if it weren't for Brandon Marsh, like, I don't know where this offense would be at the
Right,
moment,
for sure.
because
Especially with a guy like
he
Trey Turner, who's like playing terrible.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, it's funny. Like, somebody said to me the other day, if you put the numbers that Brandon Marsh is producing to Trey Turner, then the expectations would be like 1-to-1 for this baseball team, right? Because
Right,
Turner produced, Harper produced, Schwarber produced, everybody else kind of, I don't know, takes turns, if you will.
right,
Yeah.
But you know, Marsh has been, and I have been one of the biggest Brandon Marsh. Like, this guy is strictly a platoon player. I don't know how much value he has past that. I am so glad he has proven me wrong this year. He's
Yeah.
been much better against lefties. His
right.
approach just looks cleaner. He's not chasing as much. Brandon Marsh has been sensational, and it's been so needed because Trey Turner's really, really struggled at the top of the lineup.
It's probably one of Dombrowski's biggest moves that he's made in his tenure. I would probably say, like, acquiring Brandon Marsh.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you
Yeah.
know, when you think about that trade, everybody immediately looked at that first season that Ohapi had in LA, and he was really, really good, and the power numbers were there, and it's a premium position because the catcher position is so, you know, non-existent for the Phillies in the farm system outside of,
Right,
like, I really like Aurelio Farabus, who's the Clearwater catcher, but again, we're talking about Clearwater. You know, the catching position's really, really thin, and you moved a guy who was close to being major league ready and had a good first year. Marsh has been a fine player for what he does up until this point, but this, without question, has been his best season by far, and it
right, right.
helps that Dave Dombrowski argument that you bring up, Corey, because, like, you know, you could look to Schwarber and you can look to Wheeler, incredible signings, two of the best free agent signings the Phillies have ever had, but you're also looking at $37 million that's just sitting around to two guys not playing in
Mhm.
baseball this year, you know, in
Yeah.
Castellanos and Taiwan
Right,
Walker. So those things balance out.
right.
But the
Well, like
trade
guys
for
like Schwarber and, like, I think Zach Wheeler, I think the more like the expectations, like you knew Kyle Schwarber, like he was already more of like a known player or whatever. And then Zach Wheeler, it was really just like the injuries, like I think
sure.
Zach Wheeler had the talent. It was just more like battling the injury bug. And then he's been able to overcome that in Philly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Zach Wheeler staying healthy. I mean, other than the you know, and thoracic outlet syndrome and thoracic outlet compression surgery is such a freak thing,
Right.
that, like, you know, it was a once in a lifetime thing for him. But his ability to stay healthy since he's joined this team, I mean, he's gotten better because of his availability, and his availability has made him better. And it's just like an
Right.
unbelievable combination where you looked at a guy who, like you said, Corey, really good stuff in New York, never really put it together because of his lack of availability, but has just been, I mean, you talk about probably a top 5 pitcher in baseball since he's joined the Phillies.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm shocked he's bounced back the way he has. I mean, I think about
Yeah.
one of his old teammates. I mean, that injury, I feel like, I know there were other things going on too, but that injury ruined like Matt Harvey. Like, I feel like he was
Yeah.
just never the same at all. So it's amazing Wheeler's pitching to a 2 ERA,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And he said, I think the other week, the couple of games ago, he said like he doesn't feel like he's playing his best at
Back
the moment.
100%.
He's a
Right.
robot.
He said he
man.
could still get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a sicko. Like he's been fantastic. He hasn't really lost a step, everyone has sort of like the odd game where they give a couple of home runs, things like that. But Zach Wheeler, that doesn't happen to him a lot, So it's been so. I want to ask your thoughts, Tyler. I don't know how you feel about Alec Bohm. I can't really think back how you feel about him, but we're not like big Alec Bohm lovers on this pod. I think obviously it's typical that he's got to have an extension, a new contract next year. Now he's like hitting really well. He's hitting more homers than he has, and I
think he leads the
that
team in RBIs. I'm pretty sure.
Do you think that he's sort of, because he's obviously going to be here next year now, because obviously Aiden Miller is not going to be coming up. He's probably not even going to play in AAA this year because of the back injury. So do you think Alec Bohm is sort of like he's taken the opportunity to, obviously because he knew that Aiden Miller is sort of like waiting in the wings to possibly come up and play that third base position, or do you think it's just he's finally starting to maybe put it together a little bit? What's your thoughts on like Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott? He's another one that sort of like struggles.
Yeah, so with Bohm specifically, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, is this Alec Bohm's final season in Philly, I would have told you almost definitively, whether it be internally or they sign a cheaper, stopgap till Aiden Miller was ready to be a third baseman or whatever their plan was going to be, I would have told you almost definitively. And then he had that April. And, you know, I have to imagine from a human level, like the mental side of things with everything that's going on off the field with his parents and the lawsuits, I have to think that played a part into his game. He's been much better since that April. His May was really good. You know, had a really torrid first half of May, kind of calmed down a little bit in the second half, but still hit like 270 something in the month of May. And Corey, as you brought up, like leads the team in RBI because that's what Alec Bohm does. Like the power will never be there. It's unfortunate for a guy of his size playing his position that he's never going to be more than a 15, 18 home run type of guy. But when Alec Bohm goes well, he is driving gap to gap. He's driving runs in. He's hitting with runners in scoring position because the Phillies right-handed hitters with runners in scoring position are awful this year. They're hitting like 230 with runners in scoring position. In fact, here you go. They've driven in 90 runs, the right-handed hitters with runners in scoring position. That's 28th in baseball. Alec Bohm is a majority of those because that's one thing he does do well is hit with runners in scoring position. The frustrations with his at-bats at times are real, right? The free swinging early in at-bats, the situational awareness to a guy just got on, walked, and you hit into a double play on the first pitch, right? And I know people don't like the slam in the helmet thing. I know it's a little childish, but
yeah, it's just drove us crazy over the years.
I totally get it. I totally understand it. But I think Bohm is a serviceable major league third baseman. And I think people want him to be more. And I think you have a right to want him to be more because of number 3 overall pick, big body, power should be there. Never developed into the power hitter that people were hoping he would be when he came out of Wichita State. But I think that he's a serviceable major league player who has value when properly put into a spot in the lineup. Alec Bohm hitting 6th and doing what he does, there would be no complaints. But because Alec Bohm is forced to hit 4th, because this lineup construction is not where it should be, that's where I think a lot of the anger comes from. Now, I'm not excusing everything Bohm does, but I do think he is a serviceable major league player who is asked to be more than that because of the situation he's in.
And he is a good third baseman as well. Like he plays very good defense. You know what I mean? Obviously, everyone has errors, you know, throughout games and stuff. But he doesn't seem to make a lot of errors when he's when he's playing third base. He's very good. You know, it's obviously like you said, it's just the power is never going to be there. He's always going to be good at RBIs. But it's the thing of. I think we all like repeat ourselves constantly too much with this thing, but it's obviously how do they carry that into October? Because when they seem to get to October the last few years since they went to the World Series in 2022, the bats go dead, ice cold, and they don't recover, you know. And obviously, last year for Ryan Kirkland doesn't, he throws it to first base instead of home. We probably beat the Dodgers, you know what I mean? And who knows what could have happened? You know, Harrison Bader might have been able to run in the next game to a base, you know what I mean? So, but it is tough. What's your thoughts on Bryson Stott? Because obviously he's come up through the farm system. He had a couple of years, 22, 23, where he looked like he was going to be, a really good hitter in the MLB. He was going to win award, batting title awards and things. And since then, it's just sort of dropped off every year, the last 2 years. So what's your thoughts on Bryson Stott? And do you think he will be here in the next 2 years as a Philly?
I used the phrase batting title, future batting title winner when I looked at that guy back in 2023, because the things that Bryson Stott does well is he doesn't give at bats away. He sees a lot of pitches. He's really strong with 2 strikes. Those things, to me, play like a guy who could hit close to 300. Even in a league where guys don't hit 300 anymore, all of those attributes and those tools feel like a 300 hitter to me. But the issues that have been with Bryson Stott's at bats, over the last few years, his bat is slow, and it's always going to be slow. He's in the 68 mile an hour average bat speed type of area, which is fine. You can live in that area. Luis Ariz lives in that area, and he hits 300 every year. Up till this past year, Rafi Devers lived in that area. He hit 35 home runs last year. These type of guys, you can live with that as long as your bat is good long through the zone, right? He's just not quick to the zone. So he was getting beat with a lot of fastballs up in the zone, especially later in counts. You see when Bryson Stott is not going, he's popping up a lot because he's underneath a lot of fastballs, especially elevated fastballs. when Bryson Stott is going, and there's pockets where he does hit the ball well, and you have a handful of weeks where he hits close to 300, and you go, maybe this is the breakout moment. When Bryson Stott is going, he's hitting well with 2 strikes. He's driving the ball to down the left field line. He's taking the ball the other way. He's good with the off-speed pitch down and away. He protects the plate well. He works counts. He sees a lot of pitches. That's the type of guy that I think if he were able to have a little bit of a quicker bat, would have a much bigger impact on a lineup. But to answer your question, like, is he here in a couple of years? I would imagine if it's, I think he's got one more year of arbitration after this. I believe next year is his final arbitration year.
Yep, I think one more. I think free agent 2028.
I would think 2027, if there's a season, will probably be Bryson Stott's last year as a Philly.
So I got a question real quick, going back to what you said with the Red Sox, because everybody's seen all the reports of all the players that are possibly available for the Red Sox, because they're idiots thinking they're still possibly in it. But anyway, you've got Jarren Duran, you got Wilyer Abreu, you got Cedon Rafaela. Who was the other guy that you mentioned, Drew? Contreras,
first baseman.
Contreras. So Rafaela is interesting to me because he's the right-handed bat, and we all know that the Phils need right-handed bats. And you said yourself, would they be fine with an overload of left-handed bats if they got Abreu? What do you think it would take to get a combination of Abreu and, say, Contreras or Rafaela? Because Rafaela can play second base, and he played really well at second base last year at times.
Yeah, I think that particular trade package would probably cost a lot, probably more than the Phillies have available. I think the reason being is I think of the outfielders, and if you're watching them a lot more than me, you may be able to answer this a little bit better. But my assessment on their outfield situation is they probably have one too many, and they have to figure out a way to move one of them. If they were to move one of those guys, my guess would be Rafael is probably the last one they want to move, based on a couple of different factors. I think a really, really strong defender, contract is good. I would say if they were moving one of the outfielders, Duran or Abreu. I know Yoshida's name has been in trade conversations for a very long time. Not much of a defender. Not much of a defender. The bat has seemingly gotten worse. I would say that if the Red Sox were open to moving an outfielder, the last one that I think they would move would be Rafaela.
Yeah, with Duran, I love Duran. Like, as far as guys on the team right now, he's my favorite. I just love the guy. He's so fast, but he's up and down. I know he's been really hot here lately, but yeah, I agree with you. And the thing with Rafaela, like I said, you can move him around, and hopefully when they get Roman Anthony back, he can play left. You could put Duran in right, and then if you move on from Abreu, but Abreu's a Gold Glove right fielder. He's got a great arm. So it would be, like you said, would they be comfortable bringing in another left-handed bat? But I think Abreu would be a great fit for this team.
Well, and I think with the Red Sox specifically, a player that I'm sure they'd love to move if everything worked out well, like if Christian Campbell were the player that they hoped he would be, I think the Red Sox would be very comfortable trying to move Trevor Story. I don't think anybody's going to love that contract at the current moment.
Yeah, he's got a couple years left at big money, right?
Right. So, I think if Christian Campbell were the guy they were hoping he would be, they would love to try to shop Trevor Story. But I do think the Red Sox are probably going to be open for trading and open for business come trade deadline. Even though they are a team that should, I look at the Red Sox and I go, that's a good player. That's a good player. That's a good player. It's not a good team. And it's very strange because it does go to show you sometimes collection of talent doesn't make a good team.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought they were going to...
Go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say, hand up, I thought they were going to win the AL East. So that's I don't think the Crochet injury has helped them. But that's
for sure
a bad job by me.
Yeah. I didn't think they would win the East, but I thought they'd be in the wild card again this year, and with a little better record than they had last year. Now, going back to trade talk, I think we all know they need another high leverage left-handed reliever because Alvarado, man, he's stinking it up. Who would you look at yourself for filling that position? Because Alvarado, man, it's like he fell off a cliff.
Yeah, I'll let you go now. Sorry, Tyler. I just like give you a bit of background. I was a massive Alvarado fan. I got an Alvarado jersey, and I said to Drew the other night on Twitter, like he put a tweet out, and I was there in London when the Phillies played the Mets in London a couple of years ago, and Alvarado, they had Jeff Hoffman pitching the eighth, and then Alvarado came out to close it in the ninth, and it should have been the other way around. And Alvarado just came out and he just completely collapsed. And since then, he's never been the same. And obviously, last year, I know he had the suspension for the performance enhancement drugs and stuff, but he hasn't been the same. And he said the other day, you know, like I throw 100 miles an hour, but guys can just hit off it now, like it's nothing, you know. So, yeah, like just said, what's your thoughts on us getting like a good lefty bullpen piece because of the likes of Alvarado?
It's funny because I at the beginning of the year, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, do they need a left-handed reliever, I would have like almost laughed at you because even with Alvarado returning from the suspension and then the injury later in the year, my trust was there in a guy that throws 100 with a backdoor cutter that, if you throw that off the back foot to a righty, they're not doing anything except breaking their bat with it. I think that if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, like, do they need a lefty? Heck no. No way. Like, they've got Alvarado to lead things off. Tanner Banks was great last year. I mean, really an unsung hero. Really excellent coming in kind of those dirty situations and cleaning up runners in scoring position. His inherited runners numbers were really good. They brought Backus in to be kind of that lower leverage lefty and funky sidewinder type of stuff. And, they had a couple of different lefties that you thought that they could trust. Now Backus has been hurt, but Alvarado and Banks gets sent down, and Alvarado's been really rough at times with his command. So I haven't had a chance to deep dive like who exactly they may target, but I do think that it is a I wouldn't say it's the highest priority, but it's probably top 3 in terms of needs. They're going to need a left-handed reliever come trade deadline.
Do you think they moved on from Matt Strom too early? I mean, I know obviously hindsight, but looking back, but like Matt, I don't know what Matt Strom's numbers are this year. He's with Kansas, I think, isn't he?
He struggled
a little
bit.
Up and down, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he struggled a little bit this year. I think, when that trade happened, I thought that it was a move that they made to go acquire somebody else. They were saving the money from Matt Strom that they were going to, Boland's making significantly less money. I thought that they were making that move to go and sign somebody else, and they did. And they ended up using, maybe it's not 1-to-1, but they end up using that money to sign Brad Keller, who at the time was, to me, like, you slot Brad Keller in as your number 2 right-handed reliever. And even with Orion Kirkring bouncing off of that, unfortunate play at the end of the NLDS, you had 3 right-handed relievers that you could really, really trust.
Right.
With Boland, I think that his stuff has been really good, and he's been much better as of late, especially since he's returned from the IL. I think that you're going to look at this trade in a few years, maybe even by the end of this year, and go, hey, that was actually a pretty savvy move by the Phillies because Boland's stuff has been really good. And I do think Strom is diminishing a little bit. Like, he's a guy who never threw particularly hard, but was willing to attack you up in the zone, trusted his stuff, trusted his fastball, had moxie on the mound, was willing to face lefties and righties. And I think that when you watch him, you look at the numbers. I'm not going to say I've watched a lot of Royals games, but you look at the numbers in Kansas City, and the things that were starting to plague him towards the end of the year last year have been there again this year. He's an extreme fly ball pitcher. He doesn't keep the ball on the ground. And when those balls go another 10, 15 feet, all of a sudden the flyouts are home runs and your ERA starts to balloon. So, like, at the time, I thought it was a good money move, bad roster move. But as I watch Boland progress, it may end up being a really strong move by the Phillies to go get Boland and kind of move Strom before he kind of falls off that cliff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It's definitely worked out with Boland so far. Drew, you've got some thoughts obviously about legacy with the Phillies and how that's gonna end. Do you want to ask Tyler about that?
Yeah, thanks, Adam, for sure. So, yeah, obviously I feel like Dombrowski outside. I don't know that I could do that. You'd have to like really think about this, but off the top of my head, I feel like outside of Jalen Hurts, I feel like Dombrowski might be the name that has been brought up the most over the past couple of years in the city about just people like debating his performance. And and all. So, Tyler, I'm curious what you think. Let's say this doesn't end how we want it to end. It's another, it's a, loss in the wild card round, loss in the NLDS again, and this group just, never gets it done. Like when you fast forward 20 years from now, what do you think is what do you think this group's legacy is? What do you think is the bigger thing that stands out? Like, are they the '04 Eagles, like the people just talk about? The baggage and the choke job against Arizona and how they couldn't get it done. Like, do we appreciate that, they brought, baseball back to the city after that 10-year drought, up from 2012 to 2021? I know it's a loaded topic, but I'm curious, where your brain goes immediately with that question.
Can the answer be yes to all of it? Because like the reality is, like, this is a pocket of good baseball. Like, if you look at it objectively, if you asked a White Sox fan or a Rockies fan or an Angel, I don't know if Angels fans exist anymore, but if you asked an Angels fan, like, hey, have the Phillies been good the last 5 years? They'd be like, yeah, no duh. They've won the division twice. They've been to the World Series. They're a playoff team every year. Like, objectively, it's been a good pocket of baseball. And as you brought up, Drew, like, 2012 through 2019
just a wasteland.
Was dark times, man. Like, I was going through some of the rosters, and like, there's names on there that should not have been major league players, and they were just cycling through guys that are like just like that. They're probably selling insurance now. Like, there's no way they're playing in the major. They're playing professional baseball. So, like, yes, objectively, it's a good run of baseball. Now, I will say, to answer the question about like, will they remember falling short? Yeah, I think that they will. The Phillies are 2-8 in their last 10 postseason games. They've beaten the Mets once. They've beaten the Dodgers once. They've lost both of those series 3-1. They lost games 6 and 7 at home with a 3-2 series lead to a wild card Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the Diamondbacks got hot, figured out how to pitch the Phillies. Tip of the cap to them. They did what no team that year was going to do. I do think if the Phillies get to the World Series, they're beating Texas. I
agree with you.
I do believe they would have won the World Series in 2023.
Yeah.
We're playing hypothetical, though, because I could say the same thing about the 2011 Phillies. If they get past the Cardinals, that team's winning the World Series too. And I feel better about that than I do about 23. But I think a lot of people are going to look at this and say, you had a top 5 payroll in baseball. You had a top 5 roster in baseball. You had a top 3 pitching rotation in baseball. You signed Bryce Harper that kickstarted this whole thing. You've acquired big names over the years. And if you fall short, and not fall short, like if you made it to another World Series and lost, I think people would go, all right, well, your title play.
Or like if you lost to like the Dodgers consistently. Let's say, for example, the Dodgers was the team that you consistently lost to. I think it would have a better, feeling throughout the city. Like, well, we're losing to like the best team who pays the most players,
Yeah, I certainly think you're right. I think, with the Diamondbacks specifically, like that's the one that people are going to go to, and that one is going to hurt for a really long time because you were up 2-0 and 3-2 and had 6 and 7 at home and didn't
game 4 too blowing
right.
that.
And Kimbrel blows game 4. You probably should be up 3-1 anyway, right? And that shouldn't have to have these conversations because when you look back on it, like they lose to Houston in the World Series. That Astros team was better than them, and the Phillies ran out of juice. And it was cool that they made the World Series unexpectedly. The Dodgers last year, like the way the offense performed was really infuriating, and the Dodgers end up going to win the World Series. The Mets series, that was the most lifeless series I've seen from this group over this stretch. Right. So there's like levels to it of which ones kind of suck the most. But when you put it all together, I think you are going to see a group that if they don't win a championship in the next probably 2 or 3 years is the window left, you're going to look back and say it was a good team. It was a fun run, but it was underperforming compared to what we expected them to be.
Not to like,
go ahead, Corey.
Not to like change gears or whatever, but what's like so funny, like when you look at the comparison to like the teams in the city, like like you have a team like the Sixers who can't get out the second round. Like if you look parallel, like the Eagles and the Phillies, like their 2 runs are very similar, but what separates them was like the Eagles was able to win that championship. Like if the Eagles don't win that championship, you can make a debate like both teams are super talented, both teams are paying a lot to their offensive guys, and they just didn't get it done. But like that's the separation, was like the Eagles are looked at differently because they won the championship.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair comparison. You bring up the Sixers. Like my thing with the Sixers is they can't hurt me anymore. They have hurt me so many times
Yeah.
they can't hurt me anymore. Like the Ben Simmons Atlanta Hawks game broke my soul as a Sixers fan, and I don't think it's ever recovered.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think, I think even with this Phillies team getting to another one, and I think specifically getting to the one, losing to the Diamondbacks probably alleviates this thing a little bit. Much like you said, winning a championship covers everything. So the Eagles have had those 2 seasons in between where, they win the Super Bowl. The next year they start 10-0 or 9-0, and everything falls apart. They get back to the Super Bowl. Last year was a talented team that offensively the scheme just did not work. O-line's banged up. Maybe Jalen Hurts took a little bit of a step back, but a combination of a whole bunch of different things.
Right.
But you had those 2 Super Bowl appearances and the 1 win, and we go, it's okay.
Right.
You can't, not okay, but you can kind of understand how sports work. I think the Phillies run is just going to be kind of tarnished in, this was a good team that did not get over the hump.
Yeah. It will be, go on, Drew.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I feel like if they had taken the path of those 2000 to 04 Eagles teams, where it was like getting a little further every year, it would be more the feeling of okay, it felt like we were building for something, and we just came one summit short. But I think basically it's a little unfortunate in that I feel like it happened a little quicker than we all expected.
It was the reverse.
In 2022, and it's the exact reverse, and I think it gets remembered worsely because of that.
For sure. And who you play, I think, does matter. And winning the game or winning the series ultimately matters more than anything. But who you play does matter. You go back to that 2000 to 2004 run, they run into the Rams in 2001, greatest show on turf. They've got the Rams, they're beating the Rams at halftime, and they lose the game because the Rams have 75 Hall of Famers on their offense. You're looking at Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, just Azahir Hakeem's one of the best slot receivers I've ever seen, right? That team, you lose that game, okay. You look at it and go, they're going to be back. They lose to the Bucks. Rondé Barber's still running down the vet sideline after that pick six, right? That one hurts. You lose to me, Carolina was the one. It's you gave up 14 points and lost this game at home, and you closed down the vet.
That's your Diamondbacks in a way,
right? To me, the Carolina is the Diamondbacks of this Phillies run.
Right. Well, the McNabb injury too in that game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Do they win a Super Bowl if McNabb's 50%? Probably not, right? They probably lose to the Patriots that year too. But I think. Then you can look at the opponent in the championship. Who's the best chance they're going to beat? Oh, it's that Oakland team that the Bucks decimated, right? The Eagles run through that Oakland team just like the Bucks did. But it's a very apt comparison for sure.
Right.
It will be a shame if obviously the Phillies legacy, the current team, if it ends where the likes of Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, who's a Cy Young candidate again this year, and is probably just going to miss out, and unfortunately, but and Bryce Harper, obviously, if these guys don't get a World Series ring, it will be disappointing because you've got Zach Wheeler working his way back from that injury so soon. Bryce has been around a long time. Christopher Sanchez has become we've got 2 aces on this staff, which is not many other teams can say they have that. So
and the funny thing, you bring up Sanchez, if he finishes second this year, because I think at this point, right this moment, Mizorowski's probably got the inside track to be in the Cy Young. If Sanchez finishes second, this will be the 4th time in, I believe, 6 years, the Phillies have had the second place Cy Young finish.
Yeah, because hasn't Zach Wheeler missed out twice as well in that period? Yeah.
And he should have won the year Corbin Burns won. I will fight that forever.
He did get robbed there, yeah.
Chris Sale won the Triple Crown. I'm not going to fight Chris Sale winning the Cy Young. Last year, Skeens was incredible. I'm not going to fight Skeens winning the Cy Young. If Mizorowski wins it this year, I'm not going to fight Mizorowski winning it. The year Zach Wheeler should have won was the year that Corbin Burns won.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go on, Just sorry, Just go on.
I've got you're good. I've got a draft strategy question that I don't know, maybe this is too deep, but when the Phillies draft guys, do you think they've changed their position on drafting college pitchers instead of guys straight out of high school now, because you've seen how Gage Wood has done. You've seen a lot of these guys from college, and I obviously I follow Tennessee extremely close, diehard Tennessee
Sure.
baseball fan. But they've had a ton of guys come out of the draft. You know, Chase Burns, I know he didn't finish his career with Tennessee, but he's one of the top guys for the Reds now. Chase Dolander with the Rockies, I know he's going to have UCL surgery, but it seems like these guys that have pitched in college are more pro ready, you know, than obviously than a guy coming straight out of high school. So do you
Sure.
think like they're going to change their draft strategy with guys like that? Because I've heard our friend Jack Fritz say that he would rather draft hitters out of high school and pitchers out of college, and he's hoping that they've changed their strategy to that. What are your thoughts on that, Tyler?
I think Jack's spot on there. I've always been a big believer in taking college players in the first round, especially if you're in a spot where you need a player quickly. Like the year the Phillies took Aaron Nola, they took Aaron Nola because he was going to be in the major leagues in like 12 to 24 months, right? And it ended up happening that way because he's a college-ready pitcher. He's pitched it, you know, he's got good command. The stuff was good enough. Like they brought Aaron Nola up, and Aaron Nola, like, I know there's a lot of discord around Aaron Nola, but Aaron Nola has rewarded them with, top 10 in basically every Phillies pitching category that there is. And so you
I'm a Nola guy. I'm right there with you.
So you get like Nola stinks right now, no question about it. He stinks right now, but Nola's career has been pretty fruitful for a first round pick. To talk about your question though, Justin, I think yes, 100%. Like if you're going to take an arm, especially considering you're picking 36 this year, because of the tax luxury threshold, you've been bumped down 10 spots. I think there's a pocket of college pitchers right in that 30 to 45 MLB pipeline type of prospect rankings. I've done a couple of deeper dives on Jack Riddell from Notre Dame, Ben Blair from Liberty. Wes Mendez was the ACC Pitcher of the Year for Florida State. I wouldn't say these guys are elite level prospects, but they all provide you something. And I think that something is probably pro ready pretty quickly. Mendez, is a lefty that does kind of profile like Aaron Nola. Doesn't throw overly hard, 5 or 6 pitch mix, can pitch deep into games. A guy that I think, he wins the ACC Pitcher of the Year. I don't know if he's going to take that trajectory, that quick path that Nola did, because we're talking about like the 8th overall pick versus the 36th overall pick. But that similar profile where you've got guys that have pitched at the college level for a couple of years are, more adults, if you will. And I think that's the type of strategy. I think Jack's spot on there. I would go, if you're taking an arm, I would take a college player. And if you're taking a bat, I think high school is probably the way to go, because then you can allow them the chance to develop professionally.
Yeah.
So that leads me to the second part. This week we see Jeff Passan come out with stuff that MLB was wanting to maybe do with the next labor agreement and everything, do away with drafting guys out of high school altogether and having them stay in college at least 2 years. And I think they were going to lower that pool money or cap money for draft players from 300 something million to 200 something million. I don't know how that would work out, because like I said, I don't know how close you follow college baseball. Next year, Division I, you're only going to be able to carry 34 guys on your roster. Now, they did change the scholarship limit thing. Like used to, you could only give like a 10% scholarship to this guy. You only had like 11 scholarships to work with, or 12, something like that. Now everybody's got scholarship. You've got NIL money and all this stuff. I don't know if it would help or hurt college baseball, because you would see a huge influx of these guys like Schoolcraft, the guy from I think the Padres drafted him high first round last year, and he was supposed to come to Tennessee, but he was a high first round pick. Obviously, he's going to take that money and run. So you would have a huge influx of guys like that coming into college baseball. How do you think that would affect if that does go through?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I saw something that said, if this went through a couple of years ago, Connor Griffin would have been LSU's shortstop this year, instead of being the Pirates starting shortstop, right? It's crazy how it changes things. I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that says, I think that this is a good move to allow some of these, 17 and 18-year-old high school kids to develop and become, more adults as that 2 years progress. I think it's from a fundamental standpoint, I think it can certainly help. I do, however, look at it and say, from a person to person standpoint, if there is a high school, God forbid injury happens, right? In your freshman year of college ball, I know that you brought up NIL, and NIL is real, but like, does that impact your draft stock? Sure, of course it's going to, right? Like it might hinder you in your return. I look at a guy like Gavin Grahovac from Texas A&M, who was a strong freshman power hitter, missed his entire sophomore season, and now he had a killer junior year, but he's somewhere in that like 35 to 40 range because he's kind of positionless. He's moved to first, but he's not a great defender. And that injury, I think teams are still worried about. So I don't know. I think that the right answer to this is my answer would probably be no. I think that this is detrimental to the high school player, even though I am somebody who would primarily draft college players, but I think it's probably a hindrance to these high school players. And I think it further drives the point home that like a work stoppage is coming.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. My nephew, he was drafted in the 3rd round by the Dodgers a few years ago. And when he was in Arizona, he was drafted straight out of high school. So he was in Arizona and he had to have Tommy John. So he basically lost a year. And now he's finally, I think he started the end of last year, maybe 5-6 games with their low A team. And now, he was their opening day starter this year. But if he would have went to college, what would that have done to his draft trajectory afterward? Because he had that UCL surgery, and the guy that done his is the guy that done Otani's. I think he done Harper's, stuff like that. That's who the Dodgers sent him to. And if he would have went to college, would it have been as good a doctor per se, stuff like that? So that's where I think it would be detrimental to the high school players. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it is going to be really, really interesting how they handle that, because obviously if the work stoppage happens, it's gonna you've got to think of the younger guys at those lower levels, you know what I mean, that have just been drafted, or in triple A, double A, single A, and then you've got the younger guys who are on the teams like the Bryson Stotts, that don't have these big contracts, that are year to year guys, and the top end guys like the Otanis and the Harpers that have got millionaire bank accounts. They are going to be okay. Obviously, they want to make sure they still have their contracts, but it's going to affect the younger guys and the workers at the stadiums and all that. You know what I mean? It's going to have such a massive knock-on effect. It's going to be really, really dead. And because baseball is obviously it's becoming more popular, I would say, in the last like 10 years. You know what I mean? There was a time where like people weren't into baseball and it was, it wasn't so popular, but now they're starting to find momentum, and you've got the World Baseball Classic that comes around every now and then. And it's finally like on that right trajectory. And if there's a work stoppage, that could be really, really damaging to the sport as a whole, obviously.
You bring up that kind of period of decline of interest. Like, do you know whose fault baseball wasn't as exciting as it could have been? Baseball. Like, baseball's marketing is terrible. It's not anymore. It's been much better. Baseball's marketing has been terrible for years. Like, you go back to the early 10s, right? Like, Mike Trout is lighting the world on fire. He's the best player in baseball. And, like, you see a couple of commercials, you see a post here and there, and there's the advent of like Twitter and things like that. They do a much better job now with Ohtani, and people get mad about, why are you pushing Ohtani so much? Well, it's because he's your international superstar. He is the biggest name in the sport.
They got no choice. Yeah.
And like you have to, if you want to be successful and be known. So they've done a better job as of late. But I will say this about the work stoppage. Like, the last time baseball had a work stoppage, a significant work stoppage, was the 1994 strike season. After that, baseball struggled for a little bit. And, whether you believe MLB was like in tandem with the players or not, the steroid era happened.
Yeah, and that's what brought baseball back.
Right. You talk about Mark McGwire versus Sammy Sosa. You talk about Barry Bonds breaking the all-time record. Like, that power brought baseball back. And I don't want something like that to have to be the reason that baseball comes back, because it is making good strides over the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree, dude.
Before we wrap things up, Tyler, obviously you've covered all of Philly sports throughout your time in sports media. Obviously the Eagles last year It didn't go the way we wanted. There was, like you mentioned earlier on, there was a lot of different factors that played into it. They were a good team, they were talented, but you had the problems with Kevin Patullo. You had, Jalen Hurts took a little bit of a step back. You had the AJ Brown drama that was just constantly circling around the whole year, which obviously didn't help. And now he's gone, thank God, because it's just, he just as good a player as he was. You have to be rid of the drama and the issues, and the Eagles would go in to choose Jalen over AJ. You know what I mean? You have to choose the quarterback, So what's your thoughts on the Eagles? Obviously, upcoming season, we got a new offensive coordinator again, Sean Mannion, that Jalen's got to link up with. We've heard good things so far from the early OTAs and stuff, that they're getting along well and they're working well together. Saquon has said that he likes the offense. Jordan Mailata's liking everything. There's a lot of promise around Sean Mannion at the moment. People tend to say a lot of good things about him around the league and obviously from the Packers organization. And obviously we've got Mekhi Lemon now drafted. He's a promising young receiver again. Devontae's going to be wide receiver number 1. So how do you feel like how the Eagles could look going into the new season as it approaches?
Yeah, one of the things that I value extremely about Jalen Hurts, and I know that this is like, you go to sports radio, you go to have the type of conversation is like, does Jalen Hurts needs to take more chances? One of the things I value about Jalen Hurts is his risk aversion, and he is a protector of the football, and at the quarterback position, that is a key trait that I think is important, no matter who you are, whether you're the elite of the elite or you're fringe starter. Jalen Hurts does an incredible job of protecting the football. Now, the one thing I would like to see in Sean Mannion's offense is attacking the middle of the field a little bit more. They do not like to attack the middle of the field traditionally, and I would like to see them get after the middle of the field a little bit more in the passing game. And I'm hoping that, losing AJ Brown is a roster hurt. There's no doubt about it. AJ Brown is one of the top 10 receivers in the NFL, an incredible talent. When he says he's always open, when he's trying, the answer is he's always open, because he's trying. A great route runner. He's strong, he's physical, he's tall, and he just beats you in so many different ways. Like, the Eagles are offensively less talented this year because AJ Brown is not on the roster. But I think with the combination of the new offensive coordinator bringing in Sean Mannion, I think a healthy offensive line. Lane Johnson has talked about how he doesn't feel like he's on an island anymore, playing the right tackle position. I think it's a reinvigorated offensive line. I think it's a reinvigorated run game. Maybe not 2000 again, like you saw in 2024.
Yeah.
But probably a better year next year than you saw this past year. Less inside zone. And I think that you're going to see a more creative offense, a more dynamic and more complex offense. I think the Eagles have a very, very good roster. I think that they probably took a small step back in roster construction, just simply by the fact that you lose AJ Brown and you lose Nakobe Dean. And I know that they love Jahad Campbell, and it's why they allowed Nakobe Dean to walk in free agency. But yeah, I do think you took maybe a small step back from a total roster package. But I do expect them to be a good team again this year. I think that this is a team that can very squarely win 11 games, 12 games maybe, push for a division title. And I think that they're probably one of the 3 or 4 teams in the NFC. I think the Rams are probably the elite of the elite right now, especially after the Myles Garrett trade. But I still think this is a really good, complete football team that should compete, at a pretty high level this year.
Yeah, definitely. If they can get everything going in the right direction quite early. Obviously, it is a tough schedule. It's like a bit of a mixed bag schedule. There's a little pocket of games towards the end, in the middle, where they will need to get some wins. I think the beginning, like the first 5 games, are going to be really tough for the Eagles. I'm going to the London game when they play the Jags, so I can't wait to see that. It was. I'm not kidding you, Tyler. It was so difficult to get tickets.
Oh, I'm sure.
When it was insane, because obviously you've got all the people from Philadelphia coming over here as well, which is going to be really exciting to see. Mix with Philly fans again. But so they've they can do it. It's definitely there. It's just they got, if they can get off to a good start, then who knows what can happen. You know what I mean? It's going to be really exciting to see what Mekhi Lemon looks like. Devontae number 1, no drama. I think the defense will be good again. We still got Vic Fangio. And like they say a lot, Howie Roseman. You've always, if as long as we've got Howie Roseman in there constructing and wheeling and dealing, we should be okay. So yeah.
Well, and
So
one thing I would be interested to see now that they have two legitimate pass catching tight ends. Like, I would be interested to see if in year one, the Dallas Goedert lines up in his traditional inline tight end spot. I would be curious to see if they use Eli Stowers at all in the slot.
Yeah,
a
In
little
the
bit more out of
slot. Yep.
kind of slotted out wide. Just because he does have a little bit of a wide receiver build, and he's not a huge tight end by any means, but he's a really good pass catcher. I would be curious if they do like a quote unquote two tight end set, but one of them is lined out kind of out wide.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Stowers, watching him in Vanderbilt last year, me being down here in SEC country, that kid was a beast. I was tickled to death when they drafted him, dude. And I brought the same point up. I'd love to see him run some him out in the slot, stuff like that. Put Lemon out wide and him in the slot and Devontae on the other side, and you could put him out wide and Lemon in the slot, because I think he's a great athlete, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a. Go ahead, Adam.
No, go on, Drew. You go, and then I'll wrap it up then.
Yeah, no, I was just saying. I think that's a big camp story. Just because if you think about it, if you just think about the offense and just like a pure numbers game, you kind of have. I feel like every play almost is, who do you want that last guy to be on the field? Is it Stowers? Is it Dontavian Wicks? Is it one of the other?
Yeah.
5 random receivers you could cherry pick. So I feel like, I don't expect them to show anything in the preseason, but those like even just like camp and those like open practices with the Patriots, I feel like that's a thing to keep an eye on, just like the personnel that's literally on the field.
Yeah, if Sean Mannion can, if this offense is going to be designed as, exciting as predicted, and even just a balanced offense, what I mean? Like Tyler said, if the line is healthy and we can get Saquon going and you mix things up in the middle of the field, then we should, we should be good. Who knows what could happen? So yeah. Well, guys, we leave it there this week. Tyler, thanks again, mate, for coming on. Really appreciate you. I've been, listening to you for a long time now, these last few years. So getting you on is a big win for us as a pod. Love what you do with the Phillies and your podcast and stuff. So thanks for coming on with us.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And anytime you guys want me back, I'm happy to chop it up again. This was a lot of fun. Thank you,
definitely,
guys.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Real quick before we go, we end every pod. We started this a couple of pods ago with naming favorite things. And this week it was going to be name your favorite non-Eagles player that you loved watching. So we're going to start first with Tyler. He's the guest. So non-Eagles player that you've always enjoyed watching, you were kind of
is this
a
current
fan
or
of.
all time?
It doesn't matter. All time does not matter.
Okay. So my all-time favorite player in the NFL is Fred Taylor. And which kind of shifted to Maurice Jones-Drew. That Jaguars tandem for a while was super, super fun to watch. I got kind of into Jags football because of Fred Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew and, the David Garrard era of that whole group.
Yeah.
So I would say Fred Taylor is my favorite non-Eagle of all time.
All right, Corey, you're up next, bud.
All right, this is an embarrassing take. So when I say this, I'm doing the Homer Simpson disappear into the woods. So my favorite non-Eagles player for a while was always Antonio Brown. I always thought Antonio Brown was very underrated.
He was
as
great,
a player,
dude.
like especially his Pittsburgh career. Like with him only being like a 5'9". Like what's crazy is that like a big question with us is like, oh, can Mekhi Lemon be like this? Like you look at a guy like Antonio Brown who is almost identically built to Mekhi Lemon, So I was always a huge AB fan.
Good deal, man.
Go on, Drew.
All right, Drew, you're up next, bud.
Yeah, I know the off-field stuff at the end was obviously very, ugly and tragic in ways, and there was a lot going on there. I loved Steve McNair. I've had one non-Eagles jersey in my life, and it was a Titans Steve McNair jersey. I thought he was just a really fun guy to watch play the position. I remember I think he won me, my first ever fantasy championship, and I still remember being upset about that 99 Super Bowl when they came up 1 yard 1 yard short. I thought Steve
Yeah.
McNair was just really, when he was locked in, was just a fun player to watch play football.
I was looking that you brought up the jersey. I was looking to see if I still had my Maurice Jones-Drew, but I don't have it anywhere right now.
That's a good one, MJT. Love that.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, you're up next, brother.
Oh man, it's tough one top of my head because I've only been like an NFL fan for like 10 years now, so it's tough.
That's a lot of players,
like,
Adam. 10 years, there's been a lot of players.
I know. I mean, I don't kill me for it, but I did like Odell Beckham Jr.
Hey,
when
me too.
yeah,
Odell's good,
obviously
man.
the catch that he made in 2016 was incredible, and I know he was a giant. He's a giant again now, so I don't like him anymore. But I did enjoy watching Odell. Like he was good. Yeah, go on, Jess.
Yeah, I could have went the total homer route, and everybody would expect this. And I did love watching Peyton Manning play for all reasons obviously expected. But as far as non-Eagle, man, I loved watching Ray Lewis play football. That dude was an absolute beast. I loved watching that guy, the energy that he brought onto the field every time he played. Like kind of Drew said, all the other things aside, that guy was an absolute beast. Loved watching him play football. So anyway, that'll do it with this week's favorites.
Nice.
That was a fun one.
Thanks again, guys. Thanks, Tyler. And don't forget to follow Tyler's podcast, Philly Central, on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you can get your podcasts. Give Tyler a follow because he's doing some amazing stuff at the moment. And we'll be back soon. Thanks all. Give us a like, follow, subscribe. Too. And go Birds, go Phils.
Go Birds.
Go Birds, guys.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, guys. This was a lot.